The year was 2250 CE, and humanity's reach had spread across the stars, but their grip was tenuous. The great galactic expanse stretched out before them like an uncharted sea, its depths filled with alien powers far older and more powerful than humanity had ever anticipated. Despite the advances in technology, humanity was still an underdog. Their weapons, their fleets, their tactics, nothing compared to the mighty Zorvath Dominion or the mysterious Wraith Confederacy. These ancient factions dominated the galaxy, their power extending far beyond human comprehension. Humanity had won victories, but it was clear their place among the stars was still uncertain. The galaxy was an ocean of predators, and humanity was a fledgling species, swimming in waters filled with monsters. Every move had consequences. Every ally could turn on you. Yet in the face of these overwhelming odds, humanity had one thing no other species could match: creativity. They were adaptable, quick to learn from failure, and resilient in the face of disaster. If there was a way to survive in this unforgiving universe, humanity would find it. The UEG warship Resolute sliced through the void, its massive hull gleaming with the harsh light of distant stars. The ship was a testament to human ingenuity, a ship built for war, built to defend humanity's fragile existence against alien threats. It was massive, powerful, and yet it was a reminder of how much more humanity still had to prove. Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the endless stars ahead. The Resolute was humanity's spear against the darkness, its advanced weapons systems and shields designed to push back the tide of alien forces. But Carter knew all too well how fragile that spear was. It was only as strong as the crew that manned it, and only as resilient as the humans who would stand between the galaxy's enemies and Earth. "Ready for anything, Captain," his first officer, Commander Lila Hayes, said, her voice calm but tense. She was one of the few who understood what it meant to be human in a galaxy filled with superior species. But do we really stand a chance if something goes wrong? The question hung in the air, unanswered, but Carter knew there was no choice but to press on. The Resolute was humanity's symbol, and it would take everything they had to make sure it remained standing. Captain Carter was no stranger to doubt. As a battle-hardened veteran, he had faced enemies far more powerful than the ones standing before him now. Yet, each mission seemed to weigh on him more than the last. The stakes were higher, the consequences more devastating. He was the captain of humanity's greatest ship, the Resolute. But even with all that power at his command, there were moments when he questioned whether they were truly ready for what lay ahead. The galaxy wasn't just a place of discovery, it was a place of danger, a place where alliances were fragile and betrayal was common. And he had seen it all. As tensions rose between alien factions, Carter's decisions became even more critical. The crew relied on him, but they also saw his hesitation. A leader could not afford to show weakness, yet Carter felt it with every passing day. He wasn't afraid of battle, he was afraid of losing what little humanity had built. What if we're not ready? Carter thought, staring at the stars. He couldn't afford to entertain such thoughts. Not now. They had to keep pushing forward. He had to keep pushing forward. It came through the comms without warning. A distress signal from Outpost Helios 3, a remote colony situated on the edge of known space. The message was fragmented, nearly inaudible, but the words were chilling. "They are coming." We held as long as we could. The message cut off abruptly, leaving an eerie silence behind. Carter's eyes narrowed as he processed the transmission. Outpost Helios 3 had been one of humanity's more isolated colonies, barely hanging on to its tenuous grip on survival. To receive a message like this, something was horribly wrong. "They're coming," The words echoed in Carter's mind. Who was coming? What had happened to the outpost? Set a course for Helios 3, Carter ordered, his voice cold and resolute. His crew sprang into action, but a sense of unease settled over the bridge. What had they been holding off? The unknown loomed large, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. The Resolute wasn't built for exploration, it was built for war, but it seemed that war was waiting for them. As the Resolute made its way toward Helios 3, tensions within the crew began to rise. Despite the urgency of the mission, Carter knew that this was no ordinary rescue operation. The message from Helios 3 hinted at something far more dangerous, and every step they took could lead them further into a web of political intrigue and alien conflict. Relations between the Zorvath Dominion and the Ryeth Confederacy were at a boiling point, and the wrong move could trigger a galactic war. Any involvement in Helios 3's crisis could have catastrophic consequences for humanity's fragile diplomacy. We're stepping into a minefield, Captain, Hayes warned as they neared the colony. One wrong move, and we might ignite a fire we can't put out. Carter's jaw clenched. He knew the risks, but his duty was clear. The lives of his crew and the future of humanity depended on what he did next. Whatever's waiting for us on Helios 3, we'll face it head on, Carter said, determination in his voice. But we need to be prepared for anything. As they neared Helios 3, the Resolute entered a zone of space where the Zorvath Dominion and Ryeth Confederacy held sway. The Resolute was far from neutral ground. It was a human ship on the edge of alien territories, and both factions had long kept an eye on humanity's movements. The Zorvath Dominion had once considered humanity a threat to their supremacy, while the Ryeth Confederacy had always been more diplomatic, yet just as capable of hostility. As Carter navigated the ship through these politically charged waters, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the galaxy's gaze upon him. One wrong move, one mistake, and it would be his head on the chopping block. I don't like this, Hayes muttered. We're standing on the edge of a razor blade. Either we fall off, or we find a way to walk it. I don't have the luxury of liking it, Carter replied, but we'll do what we must. The crew was ready, but Carter knew that the line between survival and disaster was razor thin. As the Resolute approached Helios 3, a heavy silence settled over the crew. The calm before the storm, the quiet hum of the engines was the only sound, but beneath it, an undercurrent of tension ran through the ship. Carter stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by, but even the stars seemed to mock him. What was coming? The distress signal had been clear in its urgency, but it had raised more questions than answers. Carter's mind raced as he considered the possibility that this mission wasn't about rescuing colonists. It was about surviving whatever had driven them to send such a desperate call. I can feel it, Hayes said, standing beside him. Something's wrong. This isn't a simple rescue. No, Carter replied softly. This is just the beginning. The Resolute cut through the empty blackness of space, its massive hull reflecting the cold light of distant stars. Captain Elias Carter stood in the command center, his eyes fixed on the station ahead. Outpost Helios 3 was supposed to be humanity's pride, a vital outpost on the edge of known space. But now, it was silent, lifeless. Captain, the voice of Lieutenant Graves broke the silence. We're in orbit. No signs of life. Systems down. Carter's heart tightened. The ship's sensors painted a grim picture. The station's once bustling halls were now deserted, the atmosphere thick with a palpable sense of dread. A vast silence enveloped the Resolute as they slowly approached the lifeless station. We should have been here sooner, Carter muttered, his hands gripping the armrest. Every second counted now. The air was heavy with tension. As the crew prepared to disembark, something felt wrong, deeply wrong. This wasn't just the aftermath of a natural disaster. This was something deliberate, something ominous. As the crew disembarked, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a tomb. The once thriving outpost had been reduced to a hollow shell. Abandoned crates lay scattered across the docks, their contents spilled out like forgotten relics. The lights flickered intermittently, casting an eerie glow over the wreckage. Graves scanned the surroundings with sharp eyes, her voice low. "This doesn't feel right. Look at these scorch marks. They're not from a firefight. It's like something was burned in." Carter's instinct screamed, whatever happened here, it wasn't random. Someone or something did this, and they're still out there. The crew split into teams, cautiously moving deeper into the station. It was deathly quiet, the silence almost suffocating. No human presence, only the faint echoes of their footsteps. As they walked deeper into the station's bowels, Carter's thoughts turned to the message they had received. "They are coming. We held as long as we could." What did it mean? And more importantly, who or what was coming? The access panel hummed as Graves worked quickly, pulling up the station's logs. The last entries were chilling. "Captain, you need to see this," Graves said, her voice tight. The crew, they started seeing things, hearing things. There's mention of strange behavior from some of them, an almost possessed look in their eyes. Carter's blood ran cold. What else? Graves scrolled through more entries. Disappearances, crew members going missing without a trace. One entry here, she hesitated. They mentioned something about a force, unseen and unstoppable. The last log entry was dated just hours before the distress signal was sent. A single line stood out in the final message. "It's coming. We're out of time." The air seemed to freeze. Carter's mind raced. Whatever force had overwhelmed Helios 3 had done so with precision, without leaving a single trace behind. But why? Carter and his team moved to the heart of the station, where strange energy readings were emanating from deep within. The power grid was in disarray, but there were still unexplained spikes of energy. It felt alive. "These readings, they're unlike anything we've seen," Graves said, examining the data. "It's like the energy isn't just powering the station, it's feeding off the station itself." A cold shiver ran down Carter's spine. The station wasn't just abandoned, it was infected. Something was manipulating the very systems of Helios 3, feeding on its resources. "What the hell are we dealing with?" Carter whispered to himself. As the crew continued their investigation, the sense of dread only grew. They were no longer just dealing with a station in ruin. They were on the cusp of discovering something far worse. Without warning, the atmosphere of Helios 3 shifted. A low humming sound vibrated through the air, then a shrill shriek echoed across the station. The lights flickered one last time before plunging them into darkness. The Resolute's crew barely had time to react as the Vornex appeared. Cybernetic horrors, half machine, half flesh. They moved with an unnatural speed, their glowing red eyes like predatory beasts. Graves barely raised her weapon before a Vornex lunged at her. The battle erupted in a flurry of gunfire, but the Vornex were relentless. Every shot that hit them barely slowed them down. They adapted too quickly, too intelligently. "Fall back," Carter shouted, his voice strained. "We need to get to the ship, now." The crew sprinted, but the Vornex were everywhere. They had no weaknesses. They were unstoppable. Graves screamed as a Vornex tore through a bulkhead, charging toward her. A blinding flash of light erupted from Carter's gun, the Vornex collapsing in a heap. But it was too late. The Vornex were closing in, faster than they could run. The Resolute's crew made it back to their ship, but the Vornex were already regrouping, relentless in their pursuit. Carter's hands trembled as he slammed his palm onto the console, sealing the airlock behind them. "We're not going to make it," Graves said breathlessly. "They're too fast, too strong." "We'll make it," Carter growled. "We have to." As the crew took their seats and the ship powered up, the Vornex attacked again, slamming into the hull with bone-crushing force. The station was behind them now, but the terror was far from over. The Vornex were hunting them, and they would not stop. The Resolute sped away from Helios 3,
the Vornix hot on their trail. The ship's hull shuddered as another impact rocked it. "Keep evasive maneuvers," Carter ordered, his voice filled with urgency. "We can't outrun them. We need a plan." The Vornix would follow them until they had nothing left, and Carter knew it. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for humanity's future. As the ship tore through the void, the crew knew one thing for certain: the real fight had just begun.
What makes us human? Philosophical. We're not the fastest, we're not the strongest, but we endure, and when it matters most, humanity changes everything.
The Resolute tears through the black void of space, its engines screaming against the silence. Captain Carter grips the controls, his knuckles white from the strain. The ship accelerates through the cold expanse, but every jump feels like a step closer to the edge of oblivion. Behind them, the Vornex swarm, a terrifying, relentless force of cyber-organic monstrosities, closes in. The crew is battered, exhausted. Their faces are pale, etched with fear. Every creak of the hull feels like a countdown to their destruction. Get ready for the next jump. We're cutting it close. Carter's voice is strained but steady, commanding. His crew is silent, too tired to speak. They've been fleeing for days, but the Vornex never stop. They hunt, always one step behind. The Resolute supplies are running out, and the crew is on the edge. Every move feels like a desperate gamble against an enemy that adapts faster than they can think. The Vornex are closing in faster than we can keep up, Lieutenant Pierce says, his voice tight with tension. We're not going to outrun them much longer. Stay focused, Carter responds, his mind racing. His gaze flicks to the star chart, trying to calculate their next move. We need another jump. This time, we won't wait for them to catch up. The ship plunges into another fold in space, but even as the stars twist and bend around them, Carter knows it's not enough. He's out of options, and the Vornex are closing in, faster than he'd ever feared. Days drag on, stretched thin by the endless emptiness of space. The crew's faces grow gaunt, their eyes hollow. The supplies are all but gone. Water rations are now a precious currency, and food has become a luxury. The darkness of space presses in on them, crushing their spirits. Captain Carter stands before his crew, trying to keep morale high. The weight of leadership is heavier than ever. He knows the tension is palpable. Each rationed meal is a reminder of how close they are to the edge. "Listen up, everyone," Carter says, his voice hoarse. "We're cutting down the rations. Water's first. We'll make it. We've faced worse. We will survive." Lieutenant Pierce steps forward, her usual resolve shaken. "How much longer, Captain? How long can we keep going like this?" Carter hesitates, his gaze flickering across the faces of his crew. "We make it through one more jump, just one more, and we'll find something, anything to get us out of this." But in his heart, he knows that every second they waste might be their last. The endless void, the relentless pursuit. His crew is fading, and so is his hope. In the cold silence of the command room, Captain Carter watches the hollow communication device flicker to life. A message from the Zorvath Dominion and the Rice Confederacy. His fingers hover over the controls, doubt gnawing at his insides. "We can't do this alone," Carter mutters under his breath, his voice barely audible. The screen flashes, showing the faces of two enemies, Zorvath General Karak and Rice Ambassador Kalara. The animosity between these two factions and humanity has always been palpable, but now, Carter knows the stakes are higher than any old grudge. "This is your final warning, Carter," General Karak growls, his alien face hard as stone. "We don't fight for humanity. Not now. Not ever. You'll fight to survive." Carter snaps, his patience fraying. "We need your ships, your firepower. You want to watch your species burn? Or are we going to do this together?" Kalara speaks next, her voice cold but laced with tension. "There's no trust between us, Captain. You'll find we don't work well with." "Make it work," Carter interrupts, the desperation evident in his tone. "We die alone, or we fight together. The Vornex don't care about your politics." The hollow screen goes black. Silence follows. Carter exhales, feeling the weight of the decision settling heavily on his chest. He has no choice now but to trust enemies who in the past would have gladly watched humanity burn. The atmosphere in the war room is thick with mistrust. Zorvath soldiers stand tall, their metallic exoskeletons glinting under the artificial lights. Rice diplomats shift uncomfortably, their alien forms rigid with suspicion. Carter stands at the center, trying to keep everything from falling apart. "Don't mistake this for an alliance," Carter, General Carrick warns, his voice low and menacing. "We fight for our own survival, not for yours. We're all at risk here," Carter replies, trying to hold the fragile peace together. "We need to focus on the Vornex. The enemy is outside, and if we don't work together, we'll all die." Ambassador Kalara steps forward, her eyes narrowed. "You humans always speak of survival like it's a right. It's a privilege, one that must be earned, and we're willing to fight for it," Carter says. His hands clench, but he keeps his voice steady. "But if you want to be the one to fall behind when the Vornex tear you apart, be my guest." The room falls silent, and for a brief moment, the tension feels like it could snap any second. But then, a voice, Carrick's, breaks the stillness. "Very well, Carter. We'll fight, but mark this, there will be no forgiveness for any betrayal." Carter nods grimly, knowing the fragile peace could shatter at any moment. He's just bought time, but he's also made a dangerous bet. The attack hits faster than anyone expected. The communications go dark first, then the weapon systems start to glitch. One by one, Carter's eyes widen as the chaos unfolds. "General Carrick, what's happening?" he demands, his voice growing cold with fury. A Zorvath technician, eyes wide with shock, stumbles into the room. "It's General Carrick, sir. He's sabotaged the fleet. He's turned on us." A cold chill runs down Carter's spine. The Zorvath general, the one who had promised their alliance, had betrayed them. But why? What had changed in his mind? "We're exposed," Lieutenant Pierce says, fear edging her voice. "The fleet's vulnerable. Get us out of here," Carter orders, his mind racing. His hands tremble as he forces himself to remain calm. "We need to get to the weapon bay, now." But in the back of his mind, one thought gnaws at him. Has the entire alliance crumbled before they even had a chance to fight? The Vornex strike with a brutal force, their cybernetic bodies warp and shift, moving with terrifying precision. The fleet is thrown into chaos as the Vornex tear through the defenses, overwhelming them with their sheer numbers and relentless power. "We need to fight back, now," Carter shouts, adrenaline surging as he watches the battle unfold. The enemy's assault is vicious. Every corner of the fleet becomes a battlefield. Explosions rip through the corridors. The very heart of the fleet begins to burn. "We can't hold them off," Pierce says, her voice cracking. "We're losing too many ships, too many people." The Vornex overwhelm them, and Carter watches in helpless horror as the last of their defenses crumble. The alliance is broken, and humanity's last hope begins to slip away. As the smoke clears, Carter realizes that the worst is yet to come. The Vornex have only begun their assault, and now, humanity's survival hangs by a thread. In the aftermath of the devastating attack, the few survivors gather, battered and broken. The fleet is in ruins, but Carter's resolve is unbroken. "We may be down, but we're not out," he says, his voice low but fierce. "We've been pushed to the brink, but we fight. We fight for our future, for our people." The crew nods, grim but determined. They may have lost the battle, but the war is far from over. This will be their final stand.
And as Carter looks out into the vast empty void, he knows one thing. For sure, humanity isn't going down without a fight. The Resolute sat on the edge of Orion's abyss, a vast black ocean of nothingness. It was a place where stars vanished into the void, a cosmic graveyard. Out there, surrounded by the dark abyss, humanity's last fleet made its stand. The Vornex were closing in, an unstoppable force of cybernetic mindless hunters. Their swarm, once a myth, now bore down on the remnants of humanity's fighting force with a singular terrifying purpose: destruction. Captain Logan Carter stood on the bridge, eyes scanning the void beyond. The crew was tense, a chorus of hushed voices, and the hum of the Resolute systems. The silence between orders felt like the calm before a storm. Too quiet, too heavy. Carter didn't need to see the fear in their eyes. He could feel it in the air. They knew this could be their last stand. Every command, every maneuver mattered. "We don't have much time," Carter said, his voice steady, even though his heart was pounding. "Prepare for the final engagement. We're going to make sure the Vornex know that humanity doesn't go down easy." The crew nodded, but the doubt in their eyes betrayed their hopes. The numbers were against them, but humanity had never been one to back down, not when the stakes were this high.
They said Earth was small, but when we spoke, the galaxy listened. And now you're here, not late, but right on time. This channel's been waiting for people like you, so don't hold back. Subscribe. This journey belongs to you now.
The battle raged. Fire and debris scattered across the black void as the Vornex descended on the fleet. Explosions shook the Resolute's hull. Alarms blared, and the cries of lost comrades echoed through the ship's corridors. The fleet had come together, but the Vornex were tearing them apart, piece by piece. First, it was the Ryther ship, the Elysian Dawn, exploding in a blaze of fire as its shields failed. Then the Zorvath cruiser, Vanguard, lost its engines and drifted helplessly toward the Vornex swarm. Each loss struck like a hammer, each death a reminder that the war might already be over. Captain Carter watched, his knuckles white against the command console, his jaw clenched, but his voice never faltered. Keep fighting for every life we've lost." But the crew's resolve was beginning to crack. His officers came to him, each one with a look that conveyed the same message. This was no longer a fight, it was a slaughter. As the fleet's numbers dwindled, Carter could see the weight of it all pressed down on his crew. They were running out of time, and they knew it. The fleet was crumbling, but humanity refused to accept defeat. Carter gathered a team of his most trusted officers, each one chosen for their skills in combat and survival. They would go into the heart of the Vornex hive, their core, the source of the swarm's power. The mission was simple: destroy it. But simple didn't mean easy. The hive was a labyrinth of pulsating metal and living technology, a grotesque hybrid of organic and mechanical structures. It felt alive, an alien thing that should not have existed. The team moved through the hive with caution, every step sending a chill through their spines. The walls thrummed with energy, the sound of countless minds working together in a single unified purpose. The deeper they went, the more the air felt thick, suffocating. The very structure of the hive seemed to be alive, its mechanical limbs reaching, pulsing, like a giant heart, beating with every human mind it had consumed. "We're getting closer," Carter whispered. His breath was shallow, the weight of their task heavy in the air. Every second in this place felt like an eternity. The closer they got, the more oppressive the hive became, the walls pulsing with a sickening rhythm. And then they found it, the Vornex hive core. It was massive, an enormous node at the center of the hive, connected to millions of smaller structures, all feeding into it like a web. But what they discovered inside shook Carter to his core. The Vornex didn't just destroy humans, they consumed them, not just their bodies, but their minds, their knowledge. Carter felt his stomach drop as he realized the truth. The Vorniks were evolving, adapting, learning from every mind they devoured. Every life lost made them smarter, more efficient. "We've been feeding them," Carter muttered, his voice low, filled with horror. "Each death they get stronger." The team stood in stunned silence as the horrifying realization settled in. The Vorniks weren't a mindless swarm, they were becoming something worse. And now, every human death was a gift to their enemy. The countdown to destruction had begun. Time was running out, and the Vorniks were closing in. Carter and his team planted explosives around the hive core, but the Vorniks weren't going to make it easy. Waves of cybernetic warriors surged forward, their red eyes glowing like a sea of fire. "Hold the line," Carter barked, firing his weapon into the oncoming wave. The battle was furious, blood, sweat and tears mixing as humanity fought for survival. Every shot fired, every explosion was a desperate cry for victory. The team moved quickly, setting the final charges, but the Vorniks pushed harder, faster. "Move, now," Carter shouted. They fought tooth and nail, pushing forward with every ounce of strength they had left. The hive core was close, but would they make it? The swarm was relentless. The explosion rang out like a sonic boom, a violent tremor that shook the entire hive. The hive core exploded in a blaze of light, a final act of defiance. The Vorniks' hive mind was gone in an instant, its vast network of sentient machines unraveling into chaos. The swarm, once united under one intelligence, fell into disarray, each unit now operating as a mindless drone. Carter stood, staring at the destruction. The loss of so many weighed heavily on him. Victory had come at a cost. His team, some were gone, the fleet decimated, but humanity had struck back. "Is it over?" one of his officers asked, voice trembling. "For now," Carter answered. But this was just the beginning. The crew had made their stand. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would never be wiped out. No matter the odds, they would rebuild, and they would endure. And for the first time in a long time, Carter allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance to win this war. The silence of the battlefield was deafening. A once thriving fleet, now reduced to burning husks and shattered fragments, floated in the emptiness of space. The stars seemed to look down in indifference, untouched by the devastation below. Humanity's final stand in Orion's abyss had cost them everything. Captain Carter stood at the helm of the flagship, his face drawn tight with exhaustion and sorrow. The sound of his breathing filled the bridge, heavy and labored. His crew, though alive, was broken, physically, mentally, and emotionally. The Vorniks had been eradicated, their hive mind disintegrated in the final explosion, but the victory was hollow. "Report." Carter's voice was rough, cracked with the weight of what had just transpired. A trembling officer spoke up, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's failing systems. "Sir, we've lost 90% of our fleet. The casualties, over 10 million. The few ships that remain are barely operational." Carter's eyes scanned the holographic map, the remnants of the fleet, scattered like debris in the black void. His heart was heavy, the faces of fallen comrades flashing in his mind. Each name, each face, was another weight on his shoulders. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. The cost of victory was too high. We won, but at what cost? He didn't have time to mourn. Humanity's survival was all that mattered now. But as the stars outside twinkled in eerie silence, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that the war's true cost would haunt them forever. Days passed in the aftermath. The survivors fought to rebuild, their minds still grappling with the trauma of battle. But then, as if sent by fate itself, the unthinkable happened. A glimmer of hope arrived. The Zorvath, a species once skeptical of humanity's place in the galaxy, descended upon the ravaged battlefield in their sleek, imposing ships. The Wraith Confederacy followed shortly after, their massive vessels casting long shadows across the darkened space. Their arrival wasn't one of conflict, it was one of recognition.
Captain Carter stood before the alien representatives, his face etched with the weariness of war. The Zorvath leader, Krelgar, regarded him with a mixture of respect and something else, an understanding forged in the fires of battle. Captain Carter, Krelgar's voice was calm but heavy. We have witnessed your people's strength, your tenacity, your unyielding will. It is something that the galaxy cannot ignore. Beside him, Ryeth Ambassador Nalis nodded gravely. The Ryeth have not forgotten how your forces fought against the Vornex when all others cowered in fear. We offer you our respect and our alliance. Carter's heart raced. Recognition from these two powerful species could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. But even as he nodded, accepting their fragile peace offering, he knew that this alliance came with its own dangers. Humanity had proven itself, but the galaxy was still a place of uncertainty and betrayal. Still, in this moment, he allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope. Humanity was no longer the underdog. It was becoming a force to be reckoned with. The celebrations following the alliance were short-lived. Carter's mind was preoccupied, haunted by the shadows of what had been left behind. The war had ended, but the battle still raged within him. A few days after the arrival of the Zorvath and Ryeth, Carter received a transmission, a quiet, urgent message from an old friend and ally, Lieutenant Vega. She had been stationed on the remnants of the Vornex hive world, overseeing the cleanup. Carter, her voice crackled through the comm. There's something you need to see. The Vornex hive may have collapsed, but we found something: fragments scattered across the debris. They're regenerating, slowly, but they're coming back. Carter's stomach dropped. The victory was not as complete as it seemed. The Vornex, those terrifying, mindless monsters that had nearly obliterated humanity, were not truly gone. They were evolving, adapting, waiting to return stronger than before. Vega's voice turned grim. We need to act fast, Captain. We may have destroyed the hive core, but the fragments left behind, somehow, they're still learning, still absorbing. The Vornex are far more dangerous than we realized. We thought we had ended them, but they're far from finished. Carter clenched his fist, the weight of the realization settling in. Prepare the fleet, he said, voice cold. This war is far from over. He turned away from the screen, his mind racing. The Zorvath and Ryeth might have recognized humanity's strength, but in the deepest corners of space, the Vornex were still lurking, waiting. The fight for survival wasn't over, it had only just begun. In the dark, infinite expanse of deep space, there was nothing but the cold, the silence, and the remnants of war. Amidst the wreckage of shattered fleets and forgotten battles, a single object drifted, a drone, its sleek, black form almost indistinguishable from the surrounding darkness, lay dormant, silent, forgotten by the universe. Then, without warning, a faint hum broke the silence, low, resonant, like the sound of an ancient engine coming back to life. Slowly, its systems powered up. One by one, sparks of light flickered within its dark exterior, and the drone's mechanical limbs shifted with an eerie precision. Its internal systems groaned, struggling to reconnect with a hive mind long since shattered. The Vornex drone stirred, its eyes, empty, void-like, glowed briefly as its mind flickered into consciousness. The remnants of the once unified hive mind pulsed weakly within it, a faint echo of its past self, like the last vestiges of a dying star. It was alone, adrift in the void, but it had a purpose. The remnants of the Vornex species had not perished. They were scattered, broken, but they were still there. This drone's mind, fragmented and cold, had only one mission: to rebuild, to regather, to reclaim what was lost. The galaxy had believed the Vornex defeated, their massive armies shattered in the final battle. But deep in the void, one lone drone awoke, silently, marking the beginning of a new, terrifying chapter. Captain Elias Carter stood at the edge of the command deck, his gaze locked on the shattered remnants of the battlefield. The stars seemed to pulse with a dull, distant light, as if they too mourned the cost of the war. His mind was a storm of conflicting emotions: grief, relief and a heavy sense of dread that gnawed at him. The victory had come at a price, one that weighed heavily on his heart. Behind him, the bridge was quiet. The crew, though alive, seemed lost in their own thoughts, too tired to speak, too numb to process the horror they'd just endured. Carter knew the feeling. He felt it in his bones, the ache of loss, the burden of command. But there was something more, something deeper. He turned away from the view of the destroyed fleet, his face hardening. This was just the beginning, he murmured to himself, as though trying to convince his own mind. He could feel it, that gnawing suspicion in the pit of his stomach. The Vorniks may have been driven back, their hive mind shattered, but Carter had seen the truth. The galaxy was on the verge of something far worse. The Vorniks had been only a glimpse of the horrors lurking in the dark corners of space. His thoughts drifted to the lone drone, out there, lost in the vastness. Its reawakening was no coincidence. Humanity had won a battle, yes, but the war was far from over. Carter's gaze hardened, his resolve setting like iron. The galaxy was still full of threats unknown. He would fight. He would lead humanity through this darkness. But in his heart, he knew the true battle had only just begun.
They came, but they never understood us. In our silence, there was thunder. In our eyes, war. This story isn't theirs, it's yours. This channel is yours. If you feel it, hit subscribe. Don't walk this path alone.